Thank you, Commissioner, for coming.
Good evening, Godfrey.
How has it been?
It's been tough, there's no silver bullet to address the issues that we have found and established at SARS. It's a question of doing many, many little things, and it's a game of interest.
Mm-hmm. So, as you were walking through, we were talking about the manufacturing and mining numbers, and I was saying, I wanted to say to the Commissioner, it's not me. It is a total coincidence that you came in and we're talking about contraction in the mining sector, contraction in the manufacturing sector, the key components of South Africa's economy, just illustrating just how difficult it is for companies operating there, and therefore, by extension, how that also makes your job much more difficult, in addition to the little things that you said you're supposed to be doing.
So, there's a direct correlation between the economic activities and the buoyancy with which tax can be collected. And we are seeing a number of instances where, so let me first say that understandably, when business is down, profits are down, you find that eventually tax declarations and tax payments are down, which is normal. But we find also very specifically that there are two specific factors in large business that has caused additional contraction of revenue.
Sure.
The one is the IFRS 9 reporting requirement that obviously makes provision for,
the accounting
for accounting adjustments, and then also bringing capital losses onto the income statement, which further, but that's a reflection of what's happening in the economy.
In the economy, yeah.
Another issue that we have found is a slippage in payment compliance.
Sure.
This relates to either VAT or CIT payments that are due, that are not under dispute, but provides a temptation for companies to use that as cash flow support in their own businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know how it happens, where innocently a company may say, I know I have to pay this over to SARS, but I've got a few other holes to fill, and then one thing leads to the next month the hole is bigger, and so we found instances of companies that have slipped in payment compliance, and we're working hard to address that.
Sure.
And then we also, sadly, two areas where we find aggressive tax planning. A particular concern in companies that have offshore parent companies where there's aspects of transfer pricing and base erosion and profit shifting. We've seen some instances. We are currently auditing some 25 companies specifically just for concerns that we have around aggressive planning and abuse in terms of transfer pricing.
This is not illegal. This is just working within the system and trying to find advantage.
No, some of this would be illegal.
Okay,
so a transfer pricing, for example, is where there's an exchange of a good or a service from a parent company into a local subsidiary, which is tax residents in South Africa.
Right.
Then you would expect that transaction to be at arm's length.
Right.
And so you find cost loading. So something costs 100 Rand in real terms, but when the parent company submits an invoice to the local company, it will be at 150 Rand.
Absolutely.
So effectively it takes 50 Rand off the tax base that is supposed to be in the tax base. So those are some of examples on the what we call aggressive tax planning, but bordering on effectively creating an illicit financial flow. And then we find also, specifically, we are dealing with 7 fairly big matters that relates to illicit tax flows, where companies use the tax system to get monies offshore, and transfer pricing would obviously be one of those areas.
Sure.
But there's also other areas of advance purchase payments when you import a capital good from overseas and you make an advance purchase, you get approval from the Reserve Bank, and you may say the goods will cost 100. When the goods actually arrive, you declare 80 on the customs, and you don't have to ask how do you reconcile what
Yeah.
is declared as an
Yeah.
import
Yeah.
versus what was paid as an offshore? So we see, obviously, all of this, if you consider that many of these companies are otherwise compliant and honest,
Yeah.
the economic conditions create the opportunity and the temptation
Yeah.
for some of these fiddling to take place.
Is there a point in time, Commissioner, where you'll be able to name these companies as a way of deterring others from similar practices? I'll give you an example. If, for instance, you were able to say, and I have absolutely no evidence, nor I'm making an accusation, Anglo comes to mind quickly because it's a big, well-known company, and I'm using it solely based on that. Anglo is involved, and Anglo is caught, and Anglo is then exposed to the public. It will deter Muchizwa and Muchizwa from doing similar things in the future.
You know, sometimes I wish I could name companies, but the provision that in terms of the Tax Administration Act, a taxpayer is protected in law
Okay.
for confidentiality.
Yeah.
But there is a point when the matter does become public, and that is when, if in the event where there's also a civil or criminal prosecution,
Yeah.
which we pursue through the court system,
Right.
at that point,
You can name
then
them.
there is a public role, and the matter is then public. Once a matter is public, not through our own doing,
Yeah.
but either through a taxpayer making an announcement
Yeah.
in their financials or the reports, they may say we have a contingent liability
Yeah.
of a tax dispute with SARS, or the matter is on the court roll and it's in the public domain. Until then, the taxpayer, as you would expect as
Yeah.
well, is protected.
Absolutely, 100%. So I guess the Samanco issue falls into what you are talking about, wherein you have action instituted by a union and other players going to court, and now someone naming Samanco and saying, oh, hello, these guys took out extra billion rand.
When the issue that you're referring to is a union taking an employer to court
And making very serious allegations.
because they allege that the employer collected pay-as-you-earn from the employers, but did not pay that over
Yeah.
to the Revenue Service, and therefore they considered that to be a compromise of the provision and obligation that the employees make,
Yeah.
but through the agency of the employer.
Yeah. Then that can be.
When a union or a third party takes a matter to court, SARS is then mentioned as a party in the matter, and
Yeah,
it's public.
you
We
can
didn't
talk
make
about
that public.
So you can't talk about Samanco, I guess.
I can't talk about any taxpayer.
Commissioner, you're here. So you're doing many little things. And I imagine one of those many little things is fixing the nuts and bolts of the machines and the people that make SARS work. Just update us quickly on the work that you've done on that front and how far you are.
So let me talk about the soft infrastructure and the hard infrastructure. On
Okay.
the soft infrastructure, it's about just the morale of the people. The fact that a culture of fear and intimidation has manifested in the organization. The fact that there's a complete disconnect between leadership and the staff in our frontline businesses,
Yeah.
in the offices, and a loss of trust. So an important piece of work is to work with the staff directly, which I'm doing, but also with the organized representatives in labor. We have PSA and NAHAU as our true unions with whom we have recognition agreements,
Yeah.
to meet regularly with them, take them into our confidence,
Yeah.
and accept them as bona fide partners
Right.
in this journey of rebuilding SARS. That's on the soft side, to build trust and integrity in the organization. On the hard side, it was dealing with the performance review of senior executives as per the Nugent recommendation. It is addressing people who have been misplaced or marginalized and bringing them back to meaningful work. And 60 of those cases are mentioned that we have addressed.
Sure.
It is addressing people who may have been pursued either through a disciplinary process and have been dealt with, or are currently still suffering because of that. And there's a specific list of names that we are dealing with. And then it's about reaching out to employees who have left,
Yeah.
who we believe are solid, institutional, experienced people who can come back and add value.
Yeah.
So that's part of that, fixing up the capability area, what I call the hard infrastructure of the people. And then also, hopefully soon, to build enough confidence in the public so that when we do go out and advertise and invite people to apply for jobs, it will be from an employer of choice perspective.
Absolutely. Okay, we're running out of time, and it's amazing because we've been given a large chunk of time here today on CNBC Africa, but let's push as much as we can in terms of what we can talk about. So I was looking at some numbers the other day on the government, I think government spending comes through to the economists, they pass through it, and then they make their comments, etc., etc. And what it showed was that government spending was outpacing revenue collection, number one. Number two, government spending at the same time was not keeping within budget. I think they were running ahead of budget in terms of what they were getting the money on, which is not your issue. Your issue is obviously your own targets. How short are you?
So we've reported after the first quarter results that we will report, and we will soon report the second quarter results, that at the time we were lagging by about 15 billion against the printed estimate. Now clearly that's still early days, so lots can happen between then and now. We are working very hard, obviously, to stay that and to minimize the under-collection that we already have reported. What makes that hard, Godfrey, is firstly, the economy isn't behaving, and so therefore, not only when you're not creating new jobs, when you're not growing additional businesses, not only do you have that contraction, but you also have some of the arrangements that I said earlier on that has a direct impact on whether or not taxpayers fulfill their obligations. In addition to that, it's going to take some time to rebuild the internal capability within SARS to administer its mandate at the level that is required. And then thirdly, we have to build public confidence, because when we don't, the public may feel morally justified to continue fiddling with their taxes. And so public confidence is important. But I have to also say, you mentioned that it is not our job to spend the money, but we are a stakeholder in how that money is being spent. Because if the public believe that the monies, their hard-earned taxes, are not well spent, they also feel morally justified to withhold their taxes. So we have a deep stake in the quality of the spend, and my message to my colleagues in government is to honor that stewardship and to make sure we spend that money wisely.
I was actually going to ask another question in addition to that, which touches in on what you're speaking about, tax morality. I just wanted to get a sense if you have an idea of just how low it's gone.
It's hard to quantify. We are currently doing, we've reinitiated the Davis Tax Committee that is doing some tax gap work. So we are currently looking at that. But let me just say that it is unacceptable at the moment. And so we know that we have seen a decline in public confidence and trust, and that translates to a decline in revenue.
Absolutely. Commissioner, thank you for your time again.
Pleasure.
That's the Commissioner of the South African Revenue Services, Edward Kieswetter. Thank you.